Hello there guys, thank you for joining me. This is Anushka and today we're talking about the square that's going on between Saturn and Uranus. This is what I'm calling the clash of the titans and the emerging of a new society. Saturn and Taurus are in relationship in this square with each other for a whole 2 years pretty much, and they were exact on February the 19th and will go exact again on June the 14th and then again on December the 24th. So this is a major theme throughout this year, running into next year as well. This is a heavy hitter. This colours over the whole year on a global level, and also it touches on our personal lives as well. Also, this affects society on such a broad level, and you'll see why as we go into more of this. Think unstoppable force, which is Uranus, meets immovable object, which is Saturn. The world is changing and things can feel very messy at the moment, and this is what happens when we go through a jump, essentially, in civilization, when we go through a certain kind of birthing process. Now, we need to look at both placements individually and then look at the relationship that Saturn and Uranus are having with one another in order to unpack this. So we need to start off, let's look at Saturn, for instance. What does Saturn rule? Okay, so Saturn is associated with things like authority, restriction, construction, rules, limits, limitations. It's about responsibility and duty. Saturn is actually the ancient ruler of Aquarius. We now know it to be, in modern astrology, to be Uranus, but Saturn is actually comfortable in Aquarius, which might sound strange, especially when you think about the sign of Aquarius. Yes, there is a sense of tension, like any placement, there is a positive and a negative, but Saturn can actually work very well in Uranus, and what we're looking at the moment is an upgrading of our Saturnian energies, if you like, the upgrading of things like social responsibility, things like duty, how we wield our power individually and also as a society, looking at those who are in power. Maybe it's time to start challenging that. So we take those key themes that are linked to Saturn and then we put them into the sign of Aquarius, which is concerned with social responsibility, humanitarianism. It's about progression, technology, our friendships, the groups that we relate to, how we identify ourselves, who we identify with. It's very much about the collective, social justice and liberation. It's also about holistic living and our attitudes towards life on far broader terms. Aquarius is a very large sign in a sense. It rules the heavens, so it encompasses quite a lot, and it's a big thinker essentially. Now, Saturn demands that we're being realistic and that we're being honest, and this is what's going to be happening in whatever area, whichever area of your life, whichever area of your chart Saturn falls in. It's going to be asking you to be realistic. It's going to be asking you to be honest about what you're doing there, and it will be testing you because this is what this planet does. Saturn tests us in order to build up our strength, to make sure that our foundations are correct and that we can move forward having learnt the lessons. It reveals where we need to build strength, and this is why it takes so much time transiting each sign. It stays there for so long. It's because it wants you to do things thoroughly and properly. And although so many people look at Saturn as being a taskmaster and as being dreary, it's actually a really, really unbelievably useful energy if we work with it properly, if we can be honest with ourselves. Saturn in Aquarius is about social responsibility. Okay, it's about our social lives and it's about our associations. It's about contributions to our community and the groups that we identify with. What I find quite interesting about this placement as well is that, Saturn is a restrictive sign. It restricts in order to simplify. And it's quite interesting, isn't it, that we've been going through this pandemic where our social lives have been restricted, our contact with others has been restricted. And with that pause, it's caused a lot of us to take pause, to reconsider our friendships, our social groups, with that space and time away. Who is valuable to me? Who do I really align with? Rather than just wasting time on being with anybody and everyone just for the sake of company. So We're looking at things like group movements with this placement as well. With this particular placement, yeah. Saturn in Aquarius. So it's time to take a realistic look at these things and to slim down, in a sense, to simplify. Saturn values quality over quantity. And that's what you really want to bear in mind. When you look at where it falls in your chart, it's about quality over quantity. So if you look at where this particular placement's falling in your chart, that's really something to bear in mind. Quality over quantity. Where have I been overdoing it? And have I been using my resources wisely? And that's energetic as well as monetary or anything like that. Aquarius being the natural ruler of the 11th house, the 11th house being associated with our dreams. This is a testing of our dreams as well. This is a time when we're being asked, are your dreams grounded in reality, or is it time to, in a sense, mature and grow up a little bit and to admit what's realistic and what's not, what can be done and what cannot? It's really going to be a struggle for those of us who have a hard time letting go of things that aren't serving us. And that's not necessarily even just bad habits. It can be scattering ourselves. Really is going to be it's going to be a very difficult thing to do. Having too many plates spinning in the air is really, we're going to feel the tension of that very quickly while this energy is going about. And this is because Saturn wants to focus us, and it's not trying to be a dream killer, but it's trying to say to us, pick what is true to you. It's concerned with truth. Pick what is based in integrity and go with that. Work diligently on that. It is time to, in a sense, grow up and mature a bit. But with that, we can get really amazing results. Saturn does bring results. It brings gifts and rewards. Delayed ones, but they are the congratulations that you get for all of the hard work that you put in. So, in a sense, we are being asked to restrict ourselves. We are being asked to simplify. At the same time, just like anything, it's wise not to take this energy to an extreme. Rules, regulations and restrictions are useful, but only to a certain point. And I think this is what we're finding interesting again with COVID. How far are regulations being taken? How restricted are we being? And is it really in the name of COVID, or is it in the name of something more covert? These are questions that are coming up at the moment. Aquarius as well is an interesting sign because it is a sign of the rebel, and we're seeing a lot of different schools of thought coming out at the moment. We're seeing a lot of different ways of identifying, and in that sense there's no harm in that. But there's also this energy of rebelling for the sake of rebelling, being different for the sake of being different. Now Saturn won't like this. Saturn will regard this as immature and a waste of time. Okay, Saturn wants integrity at the end of the day, and Saturn in Aquarius is about integrity. And I think this is where we're running into a lot of difficulties. We're seeing people who are wanting to be different, or groups who are wanting to be outspoken for the sake of being outspoken. People wanting to take offense, perhaps even, just for the sake of having something to say. This is really not working, and all it's doing is it's getting us more and more entangled, which again does not work with that Saturnian energy, because Saturn likes to simplify. It likes things to be clear. So it's about progressive movement, yes, but in a way that's structured, that's honest, that's realistic, and that's based in a sense of maturity, having learnt the lessons of our past mistakes. So this is a good time to let go of lost causes and to keep what works and to build on what works. And that takes a lot of honesty. But it is a time for us to let go of illusion, especially in the areas of life in which it touches. You know, if it's falling in your health sector, it's time to stop kidding yourself. You know, if you're ending up with one result and you know it's because you're doing A and it's leading to B, you can no longer keep saying, oh, it's everything else. You have to face the fact that it's because you're doing A. Same thing as if you're feeling that you're getting betrayed by all your friends constantly. You have to look at the people that you choose to have in your life. You have to get real about the choices you're making and the results that they're giving you, and simplify. Work on, like I said, build on what works now. On a physical note, this is also a time when our nervous system is being tested, and I really want to drive this home, especially during the exact square that they're going to make on June the 14th. You know, June is the June the 14th, Gemini period. Gemini is also highly connected with the nervous system. Really watch out for strains, exhaustion. This is a good time to be getting the right kind of rest. Saturn is a very rigid and demanding energy in some ways, and this can have us feeling like our muscles are feeling contracted. It can have us feeling very exhausted. I'm noticing this in a lot of people who I'm working with in my day job as well. You know, everyone seems to be exhausted at the moment, so stretching, yoga is a fantastic way to really work out that energy, and it's also great and calming for the mind, great for the nervous system. So essentially what I want to say with this placement of Saturn in Aquarius is, you know, Aquarius is about freedom, Saturn is about boundaries. This placement is about us understanding that you cannot have one without the other. You cannot have freedom without limitation. In order to know one, you have to know the other. And there is a way to grow within limitation, as ironic as that might sound. If we don't limit ourselves, we don't end up ever getting anywhere because our energies are scattered all over the place. So it is about progress, it's about structured progress, and it's about a mature attitude to how we move forward as a society and also individually. So now we move on to the placement of Uranus in Taurus. We know what Uranus is, what it's associated with: freedom, liberation, technology, emancipation, a holistic and humanitarian approach to the world, uniqueness. So what's Taurus about? What is the sign of Taurus about? Well, the sign of Taurus, it rules the throat. It's a feminine sign, very much connected with the earth. It is very much the Gaia sign of the zodiac. Very fruitful, very abundant sign. It's very sensual. It's connected to the senses. It's also related to commerce, trading, money. So first of all, let's talk about the earth side of things. So we're looking at, with this placement, how we treat our physical world, how we live in relation to this earth. Uranus asked us, as a society, is the way that we treat our planet right? Is it also sustainable for us as a whole, as a global community? Are we living in an enlightened manner with the natural world? We're seeing far bigger public interest in matters that relate to this, and you can see that with documentaries, for instance, that are being released at the moment. You know, there's always been these documentaries, but there seem to be gaining in global awareness, things like Seaspiracy or even My Octopus Teacher, you know, a different kind of appreciation for the earth. And it's coming to that we're feeling that critical point of the impact that we're having on earth. This is also because it's a technological sign. You know, this is a time when we can really see a lot of innovation coming in terms of how we farm, in terms of how we can use technology to heal the planet, what fuels we're using. So this is where we're seeing a lot of change and a lot of concern for the use of fossil fuels. You know, we're looking even at cryptocurrency and how much that uses in terms of its fuel usage. So there's a lot of innovation and a lot of questions being asked about how we live on this planet, which I think is long overdue, personally. Touching on Taurus being related to the throat and the voice, what's also interesting with this placement is we are starting to be awakened to and hear a lot of different perspectives. People are really finding their voice, those who are oppressed, those who have something to say about their maltreatment. So whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it is the case that we had recently here in the UK with a lady called Everard, who unfortunately was murdered by a police officer, which we'll go into that later when we talk about this square. Again, that really prompted a lot of women in Britain to come out and say that they should feel safe to walk down the street at night without any danger of anything happening to them. So this is about people speaking out against oppression. This is us hearing the voices of people. So, and it's especially connected to a feminine energy. But like I said, you can see this in so many different movements, and people also being outspoken about global issues. There are things, I mean, there was a protest that happened not so long ago, a few months back, and it's got to have been 750,000 people, or close to 1 million, who actually marched and protested in London, and it wasn't even televised, you know. So that's another thing we'll talk about again with this square between Saturn and Uranus. the people versus the control of the government and what they allow us to see. But this, like I said, it's about people finding their voice. It's about people speaking out. And this is something that we're really, really hearing and feeling the effects of at the moment. And again, another long overdue thing. I think the whole cryptocurrency subject is really, really fascinating, and it's very much a Uranus and Taurus thing. You know, currency becoming something that is online, you know, because Taurus is a sign of trade. It's a money sign along with Scorpio, but Scorpio is different because it's more like the wealth you inherit or share with the partner. It rules taxes as well. Taurus is more about the money that you earn. Okay, so seeing the planet of disruption, seeing the innovator, the disruptor in the planet, in the sign of Taurus, it's very apt for this. Disruption, innovation, these are the words that Silicon Valley love to use right now. These are the words that you hear when people talk about cryptocurrency, those sexy terms, you know, that they love. And that's Uranus for you. It is disrupting, and it's the untangible and it's the unseen, and cryptocurrency is, to a certain degree, it's untouchable, isn't it? It's intangible. So it's no wonder that cryptocurrency has become such big news, and I don't think we're going to see any stabilization of it for quite some time. There's going to be these ups and downs because Uranus does that. It's not a stable planet. It doesn't move slowly and steady. It's not a slow and steady energy like Taurus. It's a very erratic energy. And we're going to continue to see that with the cryptocurrency market. This is also a monetary system that essentially anyone can buy into. And again, you've got that Aquarian theme of anyone can buy into it. It's for anybody. It can be used for nefarious reasons or positive. You know, it's very open. I think it's interesting to touch on the effect that COVID has also had in terms of local trade. You know, we used to believe in the whole bricks and mortar shop front, and COVID has again highlighted how much that can be disrupted if you don't have an online presence. What do you do during a time like that? And Uranus here is also questioning our values, because Taurus is related to values, so our value systems are being highlighted. Values are very much connected to our belief systems. So, you know, values, belief systems, how we're treated in society, these things all go hand in hand and are really coming up for review. Uranus used positively is here to revolutionize all of these things. It's here to upgrade them. It's here to make them better so that they better serve all of us, you know, as a global community, because like it or not, that's what we are really starting to understand that we are. There's hardly a country that COVID hasn't somehow affected, and even if it hasn't affected it on a physical level, certainly it's affected things like trade. So wherever you find Uranus in your chart, this is where you're going to find that disruption. And this is where you may need a shake-up in your life. And as much as that can be shocking, you know, it's good to have these fresh perspectives, because what we can also get is flashes of genius, real amazing insights that arrive out of nowhere, new insights into how we can tackle old problems in ingenious ways. So now let's get into the actual aspect between these two planets. And when I say aspect, I mean relationship. What is the relationship that they're having with each other? They're having a relationship which is known as a square. And a square aspect is an aspect of tension. It's an aspect of conflict. And so that we can say essentially that these heavy hitters are having a conflict. In a sense, they're having a fight with one another. But I see this as positive conflict. Of course, it can go awry, it can go completely wrong. But the thing with square aspects that we have to remember, whether we like them or not in our charts, and whether we like to go through these transits or not, is these are aspects of growth. Without these squares, we don't grow. And this is what's being asked of us, individually and as a society, to grow. So I think there can be some major positivity that comes out of this. This is really an upgrading of the human race. These planets are also being hosted in fixed signs. So the energy is it almost adds to that tension even more. You know, the idea of, no, I'm right. no, I'm right, that kind of thing. But with that fixedness, what I see is the results that we get from this will be long lasting. They will be concrete. This is really concreting a new version of humanity, essentially. And I think it's interesting when you think about the square aspect, because the square comes from dividing the astrological wheel into 4. Now 4 is the number of matter, it's the number of physicality, and that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with very real matters that relate to our lives, that relate to our earth, that also relate to our physical lives and our physical safety, which I will talk about in just a moment. Also the safety of our planet, you know, I think we tend to forget about that. Our planet is a living organism, and it's not right that any of its inhabitants should be waging war on her. So we have a fight playing out between the old and the new, and the tried and tested and the innovative. And it's not really for one to win out over the other. It's for new growth to come as a result of what's valuable and old and tested, with an attitude of innovation. So it will become almost like an amalgamation of the two, leaving behind what's no longer useful. The square between, or this tension between old values and the status quo, and Uranus's need for lightning quick progression, it can really create an exhausting and straining kind of effect and energy on us as a whole. And we're seeing it play out in both ways. We're seeing the very liberal rejecting the values of the more, what's the word? What's the opposite word to liberal, babe? Thank you. We're seeing it play out in both ways. We're seeing the very liberal, the extreme liberal, reject completely the values of the extreme conservative, and vice versa, and each of them challenging each other's sense of expression, or trying to shut down each other's sense of expression. And this is the thing, there's no need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, it's about trying to keep what's useful, what works, and reshaping it in a better way. Now, whether that is a reform of policing, technological innovation in finance, in how we treat our earth, how we, you know, what we're doing for one another, you know, in terms of giving each other a hand up, a leg up, that kind of thing. It's really about, it's not about this extremism that we're seeing at the moment. And I think this is strange. This extremism is almost birthing a new, not movement, but it's birthing a different kind of attitude, which is what I would call centrism. People who are actually rejecting both and saying, hang on a minute, this is crazy to be going for it, like to be so extreme on one end or the other. And there seems to be this more grounded school of thought that is about, you know, let's look at all sides of the argument, take what's useful from both, but be more centered and be more grounded. And I think that's probably the best way to go about using this energy. So going back to, or touching on the point I made about our physical safety when I first started talking about the actual square, I want to touch on the Sarah Everard case again, because I feel like this really encapsulates a certain aspect of this square. It's quite a dark story, and not one that I take any joy in talking about, but I think it's good to look at this as an example of how this is playing out. Okay, so we have Sarah Everard, a woman, a female, okay? Taurus, female sign. Also Taurus connected with physicality, physical safety. Walking alone, on her own, late at night, exercising her freedom, Uranus and Taurus. My freedom to feel safe, okay? Exercising her personal freedom, walking home. It wasn't even that late at night. Not that that makes a difference or should matter. And then being accosted and eventually murdered by someone in authority, someone who has a position of authority, a male figure in a position of authority, Saturn. Okay, so Saturn is authority. And I thought this was a very strange and interesting kind of example of the worst side, the worst expression of this kind of energy. You know, that physical violence towards the feminine as she's trying to exercise her free will. And so this is another way that you can see, you know, these key themes being highlighted. Women should be able to feel safe to walk the streets at whatever time. This shouldn't be the issue of they shouldn't, I mean, really, in an ideal world, and maybe it does sound Pollyanna, no one should face the threat of being murdered, you know, when they're walking about in their neighborhood or wherever they are. And yes, I know that's extremely Pollyanna, but to have some, you know, we need to look as well at the position of authority that police officer had, and we need to start looking at things like institutions that have authority and how they use or abuse their authority. And this has been highlighted in Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry if you can see a tea towel blowing on the right hand side of the screen. Apologies for that. But again, yeah, being highlighted in Black Lives Matter, again, people in positions of authority, are they abusing their authority? This is really coming to the fore. We've not seen it just in Black Lives Matter, we've seen it in terms of the Epstein cases, so much in terms of Hollywood. Another really interesting one, which has only just sprung to mind, is the Johnny Depp Amber Heard saga. You know, again, physical safety. We're talking about spousal abuse. But this time it was about very vague, but you know, actually, you know what, maybe I won't touch on that just yet. I think we might do a whole video about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing, because I really want to look into the astrology of that, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut for a moment until we learn some more about what's actually happening right now. So moving swiftly on. Yeah, but that Sarah Everard case was very interesting because it really exemplified these themes: safety, security, the feminine, authority, and the rights and freedoms of women, but people as a whole, you know, and our social responsibility, our responsibility towards others. Another interesting subject, I suppose, if you like, is taking a look at the monarchy. The monarchy is a very Saturnian institution. It's been around for an awfully long time, and it's about, to a certain extent, there is a sense of, you know, control of the image of Great Britain, if that's how you like to refer to it. It's about prestige, it's about order, it's about structure. And look at how disrupted that's become, you know. Not only was there the Prince Andrew scandal, but look at Harry and Meghan exiting what would you say? Harry and Meghan exited. What do they do? Yeah, okay, yeah. Look at Harry and Meghan exiting the monarchy and the roles that they were given, and for Harry, the role that he inherited. The whole idea of sudden departure is a very Uranian thing. And I found it really interesting that they called their book, I believe it's Finding Freedom, but something along those lines, Finding Freedom, and of course freedom being very associated with Uranus. And again, this is the whole of the monarchy, the whole of the royal family. It's really been shaken to its core. We're seeing these old institutions that have been around for so long being challenged, being shaken, being asked to, I mean, lots of people are saying, well, Harry and Meghan they're modernising the royal family. They're bringing it into the current times. Again, another Uranian theme. Whether that is true of what's happening, I mean, time will tell. But you can see where, and I think this is where you're getting a lot of these old institutions who are really starting to feel very nervous, because times really are changing, and the grip or the hold that they once had is really being challenged. And hopefully it will end up that these institutions and these things either work for the better or that they are left behind. So is there a helping hand in all of this? I believe that there is. I believe that it's in the shape of Chiron. I think Chiron can, the energy of Chiron can be a good guide in terms of guiding us on an ethical level, on a societal level, on a personal level. Chiron, funnily enough, actually lies between Uranus and Taurus. So it's almost the bridge from the limitations of Taurus to the enlightenment of Uranus. And Chiron actually rules or is associated with our wound, our deepest core wound. And you might say, well, okay, how does that work? How can that be the link that actually helps us? But I think this is very, very poignant, because a lot of these issues that have risen up, whether you look at it from a societal point of view, are because of core wounds in society. How, the shame around how we treat those who are poorer, who are less advantaged, the shame over how perhaps we view women and their rights to freedom. Society has wounds as well as people as individuals. So I think owning these wounds, facing up to these wounds in ourselves and in our society is what's really going to help us, doing it with a sense of honesty and also in a gentle sense. This is not about pointing fingers at people and saying you are wrong. Maybe they've done wrong, but this is about how can we make this better? How can we heal our society? How can we heal these deep wounds that we have? On a personal level, for instance, you can see this play out as doing too much. As I referred to earlier, having too many plates spinning in the air. Maybe the core reason why an individual would do that is because deep down there's a feeling of not being enough, and so always feeling the need to put out, be of service, to be doing something. That can be a wound that could be associated with that kind of action. When it comes to people who are trying so hard to be unique, so hard to be different, it hurts, but it's not actually true to who they are. Why is that? Maybe there's a wound related to being heard, being seen. So I think it's time for us to start recognizing our wounds, recognizing our own humanity, and owning them and working with them as a whole. And also recognizing that other people have wounds, other people have been hurt. Different groups of society have been hurt, have been perhaps vilified, treated unfairly, oppressed. And not be fearful of claiming that, but rather look into how we can integrate the lessons that have come from that. So I do believe that Chiron could be very useful in this respect and could really help to bring more of a compassionate and human edge to this innovation that we're seeking, to this forward movement that we're seeking, because it's great to be innovative, it's great to move forward, it's great to build new structures, but we have to do them with the human being in mind. Even relate this to wounds related to the earth, how we've been wounding the earth. It's about being mindful of these things. So I believe that this can be done. It will take time, and I don't think we're going to see this solidify for quite a few years, but also it's a really exciting time to be around. This is a time when individuals can have their voices heard, groups can have their voices heard, and that old adage of, oh, I won't make a difference, one person won't make a difference, is not true anymore. And I think we're all starting to realize that more and more. We have the power to influence and to help to shape and change our society and our world moving forward, and we have so many platforms on which to do it thanks to Uranus. So what social responsibility do you feel? How do you feel you're making the world a better place? Where do you need to look at your own life and see where you can slim down, where you can simplify, where you could be more true to yourself, where you could find more integrity in what you do? Look at where these two planets are. Look at the angle that they're making, that square, that tension, and look at the growth that can be had from this. Personally, I think, although it's challenging, I think it's one of the best things that we could have at this current time. And if we work with it well, we will be facing a humanity and a planet that is very different from the one that we knew, that hosts a lot of human beings who feel far better and feel far more heard and respected and far more at peace than they were before. Okay, thank you guys. I know this was a bit of a long one, but I really appreciate you listening. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you will as well, and I will be back soon with more. Those of you who want to show me some support in you can come to buy me a coffee /Astro Anushka, and you can just donate a couple of bucks there to help keep the channel going. That's much appreciated, but you don't have to do that. I do this for the love of it. All right, much love to you all. Bye bye. And we're done.